Welcome to the studio. Our guest today is Ms. Aisha Arrington, CEO and President of the Fort Wayne Urban League. Welcome to the studio, Aisha.
Thank you for having me.
I am so grateful that you were able to come in. I'm really happy that you were able to come in.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Miss Lady, you do not look like the fire that you have come through. You have an amazing story. Let's start from the beginning. Where are you from?
Fort Wayne, born and raised.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And where did you attend high school?
I moved around quite a bit, so there were several different schools. When you grow up in foster care, you kind of have to go to the school that neighborhood feeds into. So there were quite a few schools. The last high school that I attended would have been Northside High School.
Okay. All right. So you grew up in the foster care system?
Yes.
Okay. That had to have been challenging.
Challenging for sure, but you know, when you're a kid, you don't know any different.
Okay.
And so that was my normal, to, live with a family for a little bit and then maybe have to leave and go live with another family for a little while. I was fortunate to spend some of my childhood with biological family as well. So it was a mixture of that in foster care, a little bit of time in youth shelters and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But, again, you just don't know any better. And so your experience is just your experience. And of course, there was good and bad in that.
Okay. All right. Included in your background is a stint of homelessness, a teen pregnancy, your eldest child,
Yes.
and then dropping out of high school, finishing high school, and a poverty.
Yeah, for
How
sure.
does one make it through?
Well, you know what? There are millions of Aishas, unfortunately, in this country that have survived a challenging childhood and then had to face some of the things that I faced. But, it definitely builds character. Not all of us make it out. Me personally, I'm humbled to be in the position where I am. And looking back, I really think we're prepared for the life that God knows we're going to live. And so for me, all of those experiences and everything that I've gone through personally only helped me in my leadership, certainly helps me leading the Fort Wayne Urban League in this community, because I have a firsthand experience of what poverty looks like, of what teen pregnancy looks like, of knowing what it means when you drop out of high school and not having an education, and how that can shape a person's life. So when I got pregnant with my daughter, when you age out of foster care, you have nowhere to go, so you're homeless.
All right.
And so that was
And a lot of
challenging.
people may not know that.
They may not know that.
So once you turn 18,
You are,
that's it.
that's it. And so I was fortunate that when my daughter was about a year and a half, we got accepted into Kara's house, which is a local shelter here. We stayed there probably 30 or 60 days, and then I was able to get my first apartment with her. And in those first couple of years, there was the challenge of being homeless, not having stable housing, being on welfare, and trying to find low-income housing and the challenges in that. I remember just hopping the bus every day at the shelter, waking up, going to apply, for different places.
You had a routine.
Wake up,
Routine.
going apply, hoping I got in somewhere. And when I finally got that first apartment, it just felt like, okay, maybe now we can make it. But there were challenges there too, because once I started working, they would take 30% of your income, your gross income. And so the
Wow.
more money you made, the more rent you paid. And it just became challenging negotiating those kind
Robbing
of
Peter
waters.
to pay Paul.
Really, truly.
Yeah.
And then not having a car. are. So that first apartment that my daughter and I were in, I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning so we could catch the bus downtown Fort Wayne. I'd take a short walk to First Presbyterian Church to drop her off for childcare,
Yeah.
turn around, walk past Cindy's Diner, get back on the bus to the job, work a shift, and then do that all over again for the evening to make it home by 7. And so
That's
it really
a long
day. And oh gosh, you'll never forget the winters and the days it was raining and you didn't have an umbrella.
With
and
your baby.
With the baby. With the
Yeah.
baby in tow. So yep, those kind of experiences kind of stay with you
Yeah.
your whole life.
Yeah. And let's talk about, you finished high school. Did you get your GED?
I did. Once I had my daughter, we were living in the YWCA self-sufficiency program. I had my baby in June, and in July, I took the GED test at Anthus and passed.
That's great.
Without ever having to study. So I was worried about that, what would happen if I didn't pass, but a caseworker at the time had kind of given me a pre-exam and just said, Aisha, let's see how you do. She thought I did well enough that if I took the GED, I probably would pass it. And so I took it and passed.
All right.
Math, maybe just barely, but we won't talk about that. And so getting that diploma then opened up the door for me to pursue college.
And let's talk about, you went to college at PFW. And what did you study?
It was a mixture of different things. And one thing I want to point out about that is that was a journey too.
Okay.
So the first 2 times that I signed up for college, I ended up dropping out.
Okay. How come?
Because it was so difficult juggling work
And being
on
a
a
mom.
bus with a baby and schoolwork
Yeah.
and the challenges that come along with that.
Sure.
I didn't have a computer at home. There were different resources that weren't set up. I didn't have daycare in the evening.
Right.
Because I only had daycare for when I worked. Just a lot of things. And I point that out to just say that, yes, in the end, the goal was reached, but we really need to share stories like that so that people that are in that type of situation know that even if they have to do it 2 and 3 different times, eventually they will get there. And so for me, it was a couple of times of signing up, dropping out, signing up, dropping out before I was able to finish. And in fact, it wasn't until I started working full-time and going to school part-time that I was really able to get through.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And it took you a little longer to finish college.
Yes.
It took me a little longer to finish college as well, and I didn't have the issues or concerns that you had. But everybody finishes college at different times.
Yes,
it's
for
not
sure.
like you just finish and you're done.
Sure.
But anyways, for some people it is, for some people it isn't. But the point is you finish.
You finish.
That's the whole point. That you set a goal, that you meet that goal.
Yes, for sure.
And you finished your bachelor's degree at PFW and you went on to pursue a master's degree. Where did you go?
I went to Indiana Tech.
Okay.
One of the best decisions I ever made.
How come?
Graduated with my organizational leadership and supervision degree. It was the best decision because with a master's degree, you're really doing it for yourself. I feel like for the bachelor's, you almost have to have some kind of college underneath you to apply for work and to be able, to hold positions that pay anything decent.
Right.
Right. And so once you've accomplished that, then that master's degree is really something personal that you're doing for your own leadership, your own goal. And so
But that also, a master's degree opens a lot of
it
doors.
opens up a lot of doors.
That not even a bachelor's opens.
Yes.
But
Yes.
just having a master's degree.
Yes. But
Yeah.
it's an investment
Of
for
course,
you.
of course.
And it's something you carry with you no matter what job you're in.
That's
and so when I pursued my master's degree, I was in a more stable situation. I was married. I had, the kids were a little older. I had a full-time job that paid well. And so that, it was possible.
Okay.
And for my bachelor's, it took me 7.5 years.
Sure.
So I was, not to share my age, but I was early 30s when I finally graduated from IPFW, that it was called then.
Sure.
I still call it IPFW,
Yeah.
even though I know there's a name change there. But 7.5 years.
Yeah.
And then I waited a couple years before I began my master's program. And it was accelerated. So, you know, it was a lot of Saturdays up all night typing and trying to get those papers in.
Juggling motherhood and marriage.
Juggling
and
it all
that.
of it.
Yeah.
But was able, you know, to get that done too. And I was really proud of myself that I was able to pull that off, because it had been a dream of mine to go back to school and earn that master's degree,
Yeah.
and I did it. So
Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful thing. Now let's talk about, you started working with the Urban League when?
I was hired with the Fort Wayne Urban League July 5th of 2022. And the day after July 4th, why I did that, I don't know. I still ask myself that. They called and they said, when do you want to start? And I said, oh, I'll start July 5th. And I didn't think of the barbecue the night before, the messy kitchen, but anyway, July 5th of 2022. So it will be 2 years for me with the Fort Wayne Urban League, July 5th of 2024.
How's it going?
You know what? It's my dream job.
Is it?
It
Tell me
is.
why.
I have worked non-for-profit my whole entire life.
20 years.
Yep. My first real job off of welfare was non-for-profit.
Okay.
And I was with that organization for 7.5 years.
Okay.
And then when I left there, I moved right on to another non-for-profit. And then I was executive director of a non-for-profit here in the community for almost 14 years.
That's a long time.
And so it was a lot of time in that field.
Yeah.
And I had been looking for another position. And so when Fort Wayne Urban League came about, it just really, you know, checked all the boxes that I was looking for professionally, all the things that I had passion for. And so honestly, it's an honor to have the position. It's an honor to work in a movement that has been in the Fort Wayne community for 104 years.
104 years.
Yes.
The Fort Wayne community. That is
Yes.
unbelievable.
Yes. Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
So let me ask you, what exactly does the Fort Wayne Urban League do?
Well, to answer that, we've got to address the fact of why Urban League was even created.
Please.
So Urban Leagues across the country were put in place to address all the issues of the Great Migration. So you had Black people fleeing the South.
Yes.
They were fleeing the South because it was a Jim Crow South.
Right.
And so they were coming to northern states looking for education,
And
for employment,
opportunity.
for housing, for opportunity.
Yeah.
And so urban leagues popped up all over the country. Right now we have 93 urban leagues strong in the country.
I didn't know that.
Fort Wayne Urban League is just one of the 93.
Wow.
And we were here to offer all of those same services so that when Black people came to Fort Wayne, we could help them get placed in jobs. We can work with any issues that they had with education, finding housing,
Okay.
all of those things. And unfortunately, in 2024, a lot of those same services are still needed. So.
Okay.
Fort Wayne Urban League, we have had some difficulties in leadership, you know, probably 5 or 7 years.
Yeah.
But we're 104 years strong. I can't think of another organization that has been in the community that long
Right.
and not ever had, you know, faced
Have issues
challenges
or problems, right.
So we know that. I knew taking the job that would be one of the challenges. Is just
Turning around the image of.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, but what I also knew is that Urban League is a strong brand in the country.
Yes.
And so because there's 93 of us, because we are under the umbrella of the National Urban League, I knew that there would be opportunity.
Okay.
And so it'll be 2 years soon. There was a lot of hard work behind the scenes
Okay.
that you do as a non-for-profit to make sure that you have a solid foundation as far as financials and board development and building relationships again with community foundations
Okay.
and donors. We're doing all of that, but we've also are laser focused on 4 areas, and so that's our neighborhoods. That's education, that's our social advocacy, and then there's that civic engagement that is so ever important,
Yeah.
especially with an election coming up.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Yes.
Let's talk a bit about the Race Card Project.
Sure.
What is that?
We were honored to have the blessing of Michelle Norris, who is a worldwide known journalist. Some of our followers may recognize her name from NPR, All Things Considered. But Michelle Norris started the Race Card Project in 2010.
Okay.
She printed off 200 postcards, left them around the city, and asked people to give their race or identity story in 6 words. They would drop that postcard in a mailbox that then would come to her.
Okay.
So first year, 200 cards. And the idea was just to kind of open up the conversation about what race and identity meant to people, around the country. When I was looking at something to do for Black History Month, I wanted to do something that really tapped into what people are feeling and thinking about race and identity during a month that a lot of diversity issues come up naturally anyway. And so I had reached out to Michelle Norris's team. Didn't hear anything for a couple weeks, so I was like, okay, well, maybe they won't answer back. But then we got an answer, yes, we will partner with Fort Wayne Urban League and allow you guys to have the race card. They trained us on, what a 6-word essay would look like. We brainstormed of how we would bring that messaging here to Fort Wayne, and so we did it. And so we partnered with YMCA's here in town. We partnered with Allen County Public Library and some sites where we had the 6-word essay cards on tables. People could fill them out, put them in a drop box. Fort Wayne Urban League would pick them up. That ended up being that we had about 400 or so submissions of 6-word essays from around the community. There were probably about 100 cards that we could not include in the project because there was some form of violence in the 6 words. But outside of that 100, we had a solid 300 cards. And so after we collected them, we posted all the cards on the wall at the Fort Wayne Urban League, had an open house so people could come and read what some of those cards said. We also had a PowerPoint slide of cards that were submitted electronically. And still, if anyone goes out to fwul.org, that's Fort Wayne Urban League's website, they can look at some of those submissions, what some of those 6-word essays looked like.
Why is race important to talk about in today's world?
I think, we have to have candid conversations about where we are when it comes to race and identity. And yes, we have made progress. I was able and fortunate to meet Andrew Young yesterday through an Urban League training in Atlanta, Georgia. Talking to someone like Andrew Young, he'll tell you, you didn't live what we lived through. And he's right. As Black people, there are things that happened during the Civil Rights Movement that we didn't live through. But that's not to say that there still aren't issues. And so when you look at police brutality, when you look at poverty and generational poverty and redlining and so many disparities that still exist in our community, you cannot talk about those things without talking about race. And so for me, as a leader in this area, it was important to me to have real data of what this community is feeling and thinking so that the Urban League can strategically place ourselves in a position to make sure that we're continuing the work of the movement and that we're opening doors and that we're closing those gaps that still exist in our communities.
Okay. All right. And overall, what would you say that you found? What was the overall theme that you found doing the Race Card Project?
That I think in some ways we're still a community divided. We still have issues that we need to address. After George Floyd, there was a huge uptick in support of a lot of issues, and now that has died down, there's not necessarily the support. What I know, without revealing my age, is I lived through watching Rodney King be beaten on TV. And so yes, George Floyd was horrible, but it wasn't the first time that we have seen something like that. And so yes, we are still a community divided. There are a lot of people that want to be part of the conversation to move us forward, part of the action to move us forward. And then unfortunately, we still have a lot of hate and bigotry that is hindering some of that movement.
Now, if one wants to partner with the Urban League in whatever way, whether it's donating time, whether it's giving their personal time, whether it's donating money, whatever way they are able to help, how do they contact you?
Well, they can visit our website, www.fwul.org, learn about us, okay, learn about what's going on in our community right now. They're welcome to call the Urban League at 745-3100. Miss Marsha's there. She's going to answer the phone and direct you to the right person.
Yep.
But really, we just want a community engaged and understanding what's going on. Right now, Fort Wayne Urban League is working with other youth groups. We're building a Ruby Bridges rock trail.
Oh my goodness.
So soon, by the end of June, people can visit the Urban League campus and see painted rocks circling our building there, still spreading that message of Ruby Bridges and what she stood for. Our banned book campaign is going to kick off again Juneteenth at McMillan Park, where we are putting banned books in the hands of our community members, books that should never be banned,
of course.
like I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, or Ruby Bridges' book, Ruby Bridges Goes to School. I mean, Maya Angelou, my goodness, and Ruby Bridges, their stories should not be something that's on a back. They should be taught in history courses. And so there's a lot of things going on with Urban League that maybe someone could find their niche of something that they wanted to support. But it's a movement that's going to stay here as long as it's needed. And so as an Urban League, we just want to make sure that we're doing things to move the movement forward. We'll have a Meet the Candidates night again this year before voting. We're going to be supporting the vote. This election is so very important. We want to make sure everyone in the community, especially our Urban Leaguers, are casting their vote and that they're registered. And we owe that. When we talk about history, Fannie Lou Hamer was an activist in the South who fought so hard. She was beaten, shot at, beaten so badly that she lost vision in an eye and a kidney was permanently damaged because she was trying to get people registered to vote in the South. So if nothing else, we need to be out there casting our vote because of all that those behind us did, so that we could be in this position to have the right to vote. And so that's a message that we obviously want to keep pushing. And then Fort Wayne Urban League is going to have our sneaker ball September 7th.
Now, what is the
That
sneaker
is going to
ball?
be our main fundraiser of the year. All of those dollars go back into supporting some of our programming, like our senior techie program, where we're teaching seniors all about social media and apps. They leave with a free Amazon Fire tablet. Our one-on-one tutoring program, it's not after school, it's one-on-one tutoring so that we can get our kids on reading and math levels. It's so very important that we do that. We have a STEAM camp in the summer that we're working with some of our kids on. So there's a lot of initiatives that are going on, and we can't do it alone. So anyone that wants to make sure that we're doing all the things possible to close those disparity gaps that still exist in our community are more than welcome to call the Urban League. I'd be more than willing to talk to anyone who is willing to support our efforts, for sure.
Now, when is the sneaker ball?
Sneaker ball is September 7th at the Mural Center. Tickets should go live probably towards the end of May. Have you ever been to a sneaker ball?
I have not.
So there's a little education here. It really is like a black tie event, but you wear sneakers. So my 15-year-old has gotten on me, and she's like, "Mom, you've got to have real sneakers to wear to this thing." So she's educating me on what that look needs to be. But it's just a fun way, to get engaged with the community. Hip hop is celebrating 50 years. So we'll have some hip hop music and talk about how hip hop was just so instrumental in the community and the messaging. And a lot of what Urban League has done when you look at just social justice and bringing up some of these these issues to the public, rap did so much.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but more than anything, it's just going to be a fun night to raise dollars for the movement.
Now, is this for young people or older people or everyone?
There are no children, so it is
Okay.
an adult event.
It is an adult event.
It is an adult
Okay.
event. But you know what? It's a come out, show out event.
Show
so
up
we're gonna,
and show out.
Yes, and it'll be fun.
Yeah,
and
it
it'll be a
sounds
way
like fun.
for people that maybe got disconnected with Urban League or aren't sure what we're doing.
you're doing.
It would be a great event to come and just learn about what we have done in the last 2 years.
Is there anything that we haven't covered?
You know what? I just thank you for your time. And I really want to say that everything that I've gone through personally that we talked about earlier only helped me in this position that I'm in. And I'm so very thankful for that. So anyone that walks through the doors of the Urban League and they may have issues with, jobs or their electricity being cut off, or maybe they got discriminated, on a job, or their kids are facing some real challenges in school. I've been there, done that. And I know the way out. And so I'm a safe place for anyone that is looking for help. And I'm thankful for that. So, and just being here and being able to share that messaging, I think is so very important.
Miss Aisha, you are lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for coming into the studio and sharing your story, your personal story, your professional story, and just about your life. I can't think of a better person to be in charge of the Fort Wayne Urban League.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank
You're very,
you.
very welcome. And thank you for tuning in, and be blessed.